I am your host, Buddy Broyles. Welcome to the show. Motivated Learning is a program created for the education and learning design community to raise awareness about the people and the reason for quality professional education training. Visual Learning Solutions is based in Frisco, Texas, of course. Our training facility is equipped with a television studio and a separate control room to support the range of video productions that we are involved in. We are a proud and active member and often a sponsor of the Dallas Area Association of Talent Development. If you aren't already a member, you should consider joining the community. As this show is a live show, please be prepared to post any questions for our guests, as we will discuss them later in the program. Today, I'm very excited to welcome the founder and president of Bubo Learning Design, Mr. Mark Evans. Mark, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's an honor to be with you today.
Excellent, excellent. It's great to see you. So Mark, as you know, this show is about the who, what, and why of the learning environment. So first, we want to know about who you are and about
Sure.
Bubo Learning itself.
Okay, well, we'll start with the most boring subject first, which would be me. I am a learning geek. So I guess you have to plant your flag about who you want to be, what career you want to grow in early in life. I wish I'd planted it earlier myself, but I planted that flag as a learning professional. So that means I've been in training and development, in operations of businesses, training folks, grooming them, mentoring, being mentored my entire career. And I consider myself, a learning professional. And I founded Bubo Learning Design about 5 years ago with the intent of elevating learning space in particular ways. I was currently, at that time, I was pursuing a PhD in learning technologies at University of North Texas under Dr. Greg Jones, doing some studies in virtual reality, and came across advanced instructional design methodologies that I really embraced. And I feel like the more people know about these, the better learning will become if those methodologies and approaches are really applied in practice in our profession. So I founded Bubo and have been off to the races ever since.
Well, tell me a little bit about what is Bubo, Mark?
Sure.
For those that don't know.
Bubo, it's part of a Greek myth. It's based on the goddess of strategy and war, Athena, who's the namesake of Athens. She is frequently seen with an owl on her shoulder, and that owl is her companion to look in all directions as she does formulate strategy, so that she doesn't have any blind spots. Nothing sneaking up on her. She has 360 vision with the help of her consultant on her shoulder, and so that always intrigued me. I mean, that was part of what we wanted to do, was help our clients not be taken off guard and really truly see the field for what it was, the opportunities and the threats, and make the most of that with our consulting and the learning that we delivered. Bubo is also, the name was the owl in the movie Clash of the Titans. It's the little mechanical comic relief owl that was given to Perseus to help him slay Medusa and the Kraken.
That's one of my favorites as a child. Yeah, although the movie itself does not stand the test of time for the, I guess, claymation or whatnot it had, but I definitely get that.
Well, everyone's a critic.
But they've remade it a couple of times. But one thing to think about, I mean, you're helping everyone in your audience, be the people you're working with, their learners, identify blind spots. Let's talk about the blind spots.
Okay, sure. Well, I guess if you're asking what blind spots exist in learning and development, one very frequent one is we get asked by our clients to deliver training. They're asking to teach others the way that they themselves learned. So they don't think about how their learners necessarily might have evolved since they learned about the practice and became an expert in whatever it is that they do. So they tend to request PowerPoint facilitated one-time events which are not necessarily all that effective. We see in the classrooms today that kids will show up knowing more than the professors because they can Google it, right? I mean, all that knowledge exists and is available to folks. So the teaching methods in that kind of environment, you can't go in simply lecturing to folks who have all that information in the world at their fingertips. So you have to try different strategies. So the other part of that Sage on the Stage or those requests is that one-time event. Training doesn't occur in a one-time event, or learning doesn't occur in a one-time event. Marketing got this down long ago, and they get the budgets for it, which I'm a little envious of. I think learning and development has missed the boat there, where we really truly need to take learning to the level of campaigns where you have bite-sized, digestible information that the message is delivered consistently and at a certain cadence over time, and the learners are forced to recall information so that it gets retained. There's a saying that if it fires together, it wires together, and that is a cognitive science kind of thing where, you know, as you learn to ride a bike as a kid, you've made a lot of mistakes and you fell, and now it's those synapses have fired and wired together so hard you don't even think about it anymore. It's subconscious when you ride a bike, and you can have that cognitive load ready to do other things. Well, in learning, if you just take it as a one-time event, you'd never get back on the bike. You know, you wouldn't have the skill you needed to navigate. Why do we teach compliance that way? Why do we teach safety protocols that way? Why do we teach anything that way in the corporate environment as a one and done event? There's so much of that going on and so little learning.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the challenges, what we knew before COVID, you know, and what we were doing, you know, the instructor-led, even the PowerPoint stuff, and what's changed in that time that I think we could really take advantage of to help sway the industry to do things better. Like you said, if students can already Google it and come to class, come to meetings prepared, how do we keep them engaged now and going forward?
It depends on the audience and the curriculum, of course, and I know you love those answers of it depends. But you kind of touched on a subject that I think is kind of interesting, in that our society is a little bit different. It is more postmodern constructivist now, where, you know, as long as we have social agreement, you know, that's reality, whatever it is that we've come up with. And I think that the learners of today reflect that quite a bit, that they're used to that socially constructed, shared value kind of, this is what we believe, this is what is true. And businesses need to understand that is part of their culture. When they go to define culture and to impact and raise performance, right, which is what any business manager should be doing, they need to activate and realize the potential of their employees and eliminate as much interference from that potential as possible. And one thing that we do is, in our upfront analysis, we use activity theory to kind of systemize, you know, what is the world these learners are living in, what could distract them, what are the roles, what's the community, what is the subject, being them, you know, define the learners, what's the object of the things they're doing together. And we use activity theory to kind of help develop constructivist learning experiences, which can be very, very engaging and leads to a lot of what's called tacit knowledge, which is where people are sharing their experiences, looking for that social agreement based on things they're experiencing that trigger knowledge that they want to share or questions they want answered. And those things normally aren't triggered if you're just doing a traditional Sage on the Stage. I'm going to tell you how it is. You're going to take this quiz, and now we think you've learned something.
Right. So based on, you know, what you described, let's talk about your focus in the industry, because obviously you have so much knowledge of what you do based on your education, your time in the industry. You know, what are the type of projects you and your team look for? What are the type of projects you want to do?
Well, you know how it is as an entrepreneur. You're kind of on the hunt, and sometimes you eat what you kill. We'll take
True.
that whatever need is. But what we really like
Yes.
are those consultative projects where we can get to the point where the system is discovered and the mechanisms of the workplace are required as part of the experience. And let me give you an example. One frequent request now, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, is that there's a lot of managers being promoted, or previously not managers, young professionals being promoted into management roles in organizations that are not ready, who haven't had the experience. They're now managing former peers, and that's a totally different dynamic. So in
Yes.
that kind of learning experience, it's hard to just tell them this is how to be a good communicator, right? That's not very sticky. The best way for that is to give them an experience that mimics the systems that they're going to be working in, gives them a chance to fail in a safe environment and practice. Some people call it a fishbowl. I tend to think that implies that they're acting, and we don't want people to act. We want it to be authentic. So part of what activity theory does in our upfront analysis is uncover all those variables so we can build it as authentically as possible, so that they are in a position where they're truly practicing it, and it becomes more sticky, because not only are they having tacit knowledge presented to them, so their peers are sharing and they're getting socially constructed agreement, but they're also asking questions and practicing things that they might not otherwise have thought of. And that is an incredibly engaging experience compared
Yes.
to being in a room where you're being lectured to. So we're currently doing a project like that for the U.S. Air Force. We've done similar for healthcare client here in Dallas. That seems to be an industry where we see that a lot, but it's really universal. I think that's going on in a lot of different sectors. So we look for projects that allow us to be consultants, help eliminate the blind spot, but it takes time to get there usually. I mean,
It
our
does. Yes.
clients don't just trust us with that right out of the gate. We have to earn that trust, and we typically earn it by being a really good multimedia shop and making nice learnings and making it really professional and novel in ways they hadn't expected. And then they start to think, okay, yeah, these guys are creative. What else can they do for us?
Right.
And I'm happy to help them with that.
So let's talk about your motivation. Obviously, the best
Sure.
case scenarios, the people you want to work with, the projects you want to work on, we all want what's best for us and the people we work with and for. But what motivates you specifically to do what you do well? And then the follow-up of that is, talk about your team. What motivates them? How do you motivate them to attain the level of excellence you're achieving?
I'm glad you phrased those two questions together, because my team is a big part of my motivation.
Yes.
I started this company as a learning designer, and a pretty good one. But now as an entrepreneur, I'm not doing nearly as much, if any. My role is to drive performance of my own people. So now I need to make sure they're learning, right? I need their performance to be where they're actualizing their potential and eliminating as much as I can any interference to them realizing their potential. So when I'm talking about activity theory, it doesn't necessarily mean I need instructional designers, although I have some excellent instructional designers working for me who are better than me, which is something I'm very proud of. So I guess one thing I'd say I do now is I hire really well, right? And then after that,
that's a great skill.
Those folks motivate me, and I want to get the most out of them, just like any business leader should. And I put them in position to exploit their talents as much as possible. So in our company, we call them quadruple threats. They know media, they can develop in the different publication tools that we use, Storyline, Captivate for e-learning, but also all the Adobe Suite, that kind of stuff. And they also have an eye for either design in the aesthetics or in the written word in learning objectives and achieving them. So we brought together a team that we've really been working to grow, and I think we are finding our sea legs and doing some really exciting work. So that keeps me motivated. I tell my friends now that as an entrepreneur, I've just become very bad at giving up, and that's the number one skill you need. But it's also that love for what you do, and I know love is kind of thrown around a lot, but if you think about what is love, love is the trying, it's the effort. Love is the motivation, right? So I'm a learning geek. I love what I do. I show that through the effort and not giving up. And your intentions might be good, but if you're not authentic about it, if it's not really coming from that point, I think it's more resistible. Like that true love of what you do should be irresistible. It should be. And if it's not, then you have some work to do, right? There's definitely been times where, there's times where you're kind of discouraged in what you're trying to accomplish, if it's a creative project or if it's trying to land a new client. And there's a fine line between misery and fulfillment, and you kind of walk that line, and hopefully you're getting net fulfillment out of it when you measure it against the level of misery you put yourself through. But that's where I think the authenticity comes out, is it's truly about how do people learn? What do they need to get the most engaging experience? What do we need to deliver for them so that they are forced to recall it, so that it wires together, it gets retained? How do we structure that so that our clients are aware of it and they don't have any blind spots and know how to execute on it? So we leave them with something that they can build a legacy with, whether it's around leadership or if it's around safety compliance, COVID. You mentioned that's a big shift is, the L&D got elevated very quickly among organizations that were trying to bring people back to work and get new protocols in place and understand what should be followed and what was acceptable. A lot of Zoom calls and that kind of briefing. Now, how do they make it stick? How long will it be before the new normal fades into something else? What do companies want it to be? They can purposely design it, and they should go about it in a way that leaves their learners with something to chew on, gets at their tacit knowledge, gets a water cooler culture established, socially constructs agreement around what it is their companies are about and trying to accomplish, and that gets really sticky. That's the way it should work, and that's what we'd like to do. We want to compete with those marketing departments for budgets to do more campaigning, internal campaigning versus external, because you might have a really good branding external. If somebody has a bad experience with customer service person, your brand suffers. So you should be addressing that internal as well. And social media, folks talk about where they work. I know it's probably against policy, but it gets out.
It gets out, especially for former employees. But let's talk about, so Mark, you're doing some really great work right now. Tell me, how do people find you? Where's the best way, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Sure, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for doing this, Buddy. I enjoyed the conversation. Bubo Learning Design, we have our website. It's Bubold, so B-U-B-O, and then L-D, so Bubold for learning design, so bubold.com. And you can call me, email Mark at Bubold, pretty simple. I'm on LinkedIn as Learning Leader. That's the handle. Got lucky with that one. I like it.
Nice.
And I don't do much tweeting. I don't really get on Twitter much, but you can find me on LinkedIn and certainly our website.
Excellent. So any parting comments? So there are people entering our industry, we talked about the industry itself, but what would you tell someone, even yourself, getting into, starting in the business? What are the things to look for? Just give a little bit of advice, someone who's seasoned and has been there, done that, and is still doing it and doing it well.
Sure. Our economy has evolved to more of a gig economy. So the instructional design position has been commoditized a little bit to where you're competing with individual contractors all over the world through Upworks and other sites like that, where you can just go find a hired gun. So in order to be competitive, one, love what you do, know why you're doing it. Two, learn. become a quadruple threat. No tools, don't be a one-trick pony, because I think those days are numbered. You're really going to need to have the skills to adapt and use different technologies so that you can be part of a collaborative team and fulfill many gaps and not just one. The opportunity might arise where you can specialize as just the technical writer part of a larger project, or just the specific graphic designer. But overall, you're going to need to know enough about those other roles and enough about those other tools that you can address them competently, and know what you can ask of them, know what time development should be required around it, and be competent in your field. So our field is a multimedia field. It's not just facilitating. In fact, that's becoming less and less about what it is. So that knowing that the media technology is increasingly important, but then knowing, at least taking the time to look up methodologies about how to train for a specific type of learning is also incredibly impactful, because most people don't. They just follow the ADDIE model, which is a project management system. It's not an instructional design theory. It's just
True.
This is the process. So getting some knowledge around instructional design theories and methodologies is very helpful when you can apply it.
Right. Well, gosh, Mark, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today. Obviously, you're very knowledgeable, you have some success in the industry, and I wish you well, and hope that maybe we can have a follow-up show at some point and just do a marker of where we are. Things are going to change
Buddy,
in the next 6 months.
It's an honor to be on your show. I know what a great producer you are. I've seen and worked with you together, and I'm proud to be a part of this. Thank you for asking me, and I'm also very excited to see what your company is doing, which is fantastic work. So congratulations.
All right, thank you. We'll keep it up. Well, thanks again. So for the rest of you who have joined the show or are watching the show, please reach out if you have any questions about this show specifically, using our social media on your screen now. So it's Facebook is @Visual Learning Solutions. You can email us, of course, at info@Visual Learning Solutions. Follow us on Twitter. We're happy to accept a phone call at any time. And then, of course, we post in other places as well. So we provide a range of services such as instructional design, e-learning, instructional course development, and so much more, including video production, obviously, both in studio and out in the field, such as, say, your corporate location or even an event center for live or recorded. Thank you again so much for watching, and we hope you'll tune in or even consider joining us as one of our guests like Mark did on a future program. So please have a very wonderful day. You literally wrote the book. You started with the first draft and spent countless hours pouring your wealth of knowledge onto the pages, and published. Well done. Now take another step to reach a new, larger audience by converting your book into online training. Our learning design team can show you how to go digital with an instructional course based on your book. We can help you increase your revenue on both book sales and online training, and increase your potential. You've completed the hard part. Now take the next step. Let us show you how.